Hi, my name is Madibu Mutsabi, and I intend to bring to you these kinds of videos every single day. Like, share, and subscribe.
Introducing Swipe Befriender. Learn how to make friends with anyone anywhere. Everyone likes to be liked, and some even seriously strive to ensure that the demeanor is acceptable at all times. This, of course, has its merits and disadvantages. There are a few things an individual can try to practice in order to be a more likable person. Asterisk Swipe Chapter 1. Getting people to like you. Synopsis. Being gregarious and is one way on ensuring one's presence is felt. Most people are happy being around a gregarious personality, and this helps the individual to be noticed and hopefully respected to a certain. Drawing people in smiling a lot also helps, as this creates a persona that is open and friendly. People are more likely to approach and befriend a person with a smiling disposition as opposed to someone who is more reserved and closed. Keeping one's emotions in check is another way ensures that people are drawn to individual. Learning how to be more laid back and calm will give the impression of being happy and contented, which translates to emotional maturity and security. When people don't carry the baggage of insecurity, they are able to relate better in any environment. Keeping some level of basic hygiene is also another likable feature. People who are untidy and smell bad can be very off-putting. Simple things like clean clothes and fresh breath are a most desirable condition to keep. Cultivating the habit of always inquiring after the general well of others is another great quality to develop. It shows a caring and concerned attitude, which is very pleasant indeed. Complimenting people whenever possible is not only a good habit to develop, it also immediately creates a likable and comfortable situation. Many friendships and other successful relationships have started on a friendly and complimenting remark. When engaging in a conversation, maintaining eye contact is good, as it not only ensures the speaker of the undivided attention of all around but also gives everyone a feeling of respect and attention. Chapter 2. Build your confidence. Synopsis. Dressing sharply has long been linked to building one's self-confidence. One does not necessarily have to be a good looker, but with the right clothes and matching complementing accessories, any man or woman can look good. When an individual is aware that they look good, there is an almost immediate realization of confidence in both their out demeanor as well and from within. Sad but often true is the generally accepted thinking that looks to count, and in a big way. Self-assurance. A person's walk often denotes the confidence levels being experienced at any given time. A brisk and straight posture walk gives a definite impression of overall confidence. Both these positions and movements actually affect the body's chemical makeup, which transcends into the outward persona. One of the best ways to build self-confidence is by listening and being exposed to as motivational media tools as possible. A lot of people now try to adopt the habit of listening to motivational talks during the commute to their workplaces or in the spare time or during exercise sessions. These motivational sessions often have bits of great advice and promptings which inspire the confidence needed to be successful in any endeavor, thus in turn allowing the individual to grow their individual confidence levels. Learning to be grateful for the current happenings and things in one's life is also another source from which confidence can be built. This teaches an individual to be thankful and to learn to look at things from a brighter perspective. It also helps to build a positive mindset, which in turn will allow for a more confident personality to emerge. Another trait that would be beneficial is to practice the ability to learn to speak clearly and loudly. With constant and determined practice sessions, an individual is able to slowly build the required confidence it takes to be vocal. Chapter 3. Know what kind of people you want to spend time with. Synopsis. The kind of people an individual mixes with on a regular basis will eventually dictate the kind of behavioral habits they adopt and practice. This will be evident almost always within a short period of time, as people tend to conform to the peers. Understand the people, therefore being careful about the choices made when it comes to building relationships with other people is actually choosing to be wise and prudent. A lot to undesirable and even damaging traits are picked up from the people around an individual, socially and in the work environment. If an individual wants to get ahead in the work environment, then it would be prudent to always be in the company of people who are in the position to recognize the potential of the individual and thus be able to put in a good word when the time is appropriate. Socially, though, it can call for a more focused and yet different technique. If the desire is to be socially relevant, then mixing with people in the know is perhaps the best way to go. Sometime even name dropping can achieve the desired results and move the individual a notch higher is the rung to social success. However, if the idea of choosing friends who are genuine is the prerequisite of any intended relationship, then looking into one's self is the very important first step to take. Understanding one's own individual needs and likes will allow for the connection made through friendship ties to bloom and blossom. Time is something that should not be wasted or taken for granted. Therefore, choosing carefully the kind of friends an individual would like in his or her life would also depend on the type of lifestyle and work of the said individual. Chapter 4. Strike up a conversation wherever you are. Synopsis. Being able to strike up a conversation need not necessarily be limited to people who are open and gregarious. Anyone can learn to interact in a friendly manner and with the adequate amount of practice using the appropriate tools. Talking. The simplest way of initiating a conversation is to first establish eye contact. Making eye contact allows the other party to acknowledge and accept the invitation to initiate friendly contact. When this is done, then both parties are establishing the interest and a conversation can be started. Smiling also helps to open the door to a conversation starter. Most people respond well to the simple smile provided it is shown in a friendly and not in a weird manner. With a smile, anyone can pick up a conversation as the friendly and open setting has been set. Having a reasonable amount of knowledge on a particular relating subject matter is also another way to start up a conversation. It should be noted at this point that the conversation content must be relevant to the situation or scenario. This would not only encourage participation from the other party, it can also be perceived as an impression-making tool. Of course, the old-fashioned style of simply saying, hi, or hello, is another way to initiate a conversation. Even though it is fairly simple to initiate, most people find it rather embossing to use this method for fear it will not receive a favorable response. Looking presentable is a plus point when trying to strike up a conversation. Nobody really wants to talk to unkempt or unhygienic people. For some people, it is genuinely difficult and stressful to initiate a conversation. There are people who suffer from certain low self-esteem issues, and this kind of problem can only be addressed medically and physiologically. However, in general, if one has or projects a friendly image, then stirring up a conversation should not really be a huge challenge. Chapter 5. Make a good first impression. Synopsis. First impressions count for a lot, no matter what people may think or say. Unfortunately, sometimes all a person gets is the first chance to make a first impression, and if it is not done well, then there is a possibility there won't be a second time or a second chance. The beginning, therefore, in order to make the best first impression possible, one should take the trouble to equip one's self with all the best and positive advantages possible. Because every encounter has its own potentials, this skill of making a good first impression should be well honed. Usually there are no opportunities to right or wrong. Being on time is perhaps the single most important habit to train one's self in. No one wants to hear the numerous possible excuses for being late. Learning to plan for all probabilities and possibilities and then timing one's self to ensure the prompt arrival, if not earlier, is absolutely imperative. Practicing the art of being comfortable no matter what the circumstances is another plus point to learn. When this art is mastered and the trained body language personifies the feeling of ease, then those around will also be able to relax and any potential uncomfortable first meeting jitters can be avoided. The physical appearance of an individual is also an important point when it comes to making a first impression. However, this does not mean dressing expensively or inappropriately. The appropriate attire should always be worn and coupled with the relevant accessories. Being well groomed is also another prerequisite, and all these put together makes a very impressive first impression package. Speaking well and clearly is also equally important. It can be very annoying when those around are not able to hear or understand what is being said. This leaves a very poor first impression. Chapter 6. Don't come off as a taker. Synopsis. From a very young age, everyone is taught to learn to share. Unfortunately, through the process of growing up, most of these traits are lost, more so in the working world. The selfish attitude practiced today is really quite prevalent and needs to be addressed. Not a taker. Being known as a taker is really not a very nice term to be labeled. Eventually, those around will make all efforts to avoid this particular personality and the negative trait it carries. Basically, a person who is a taker is one who has no idea how to give and is so used to being pandered to. This negative trait stems from the selfish attitude of only focusing on one's self and one's needs. In pursuing the negative trait, the individual tends to lose sight of everything around and becomes focused on feeding the self-interest satisfactions. If left unchecked, this particular character trait can evolve and escalate to actually causing harm to one's self as well as to other individual, directly or indirectly involved. Therefore, in order to learn to realize the first sign of being a taker implies one should first understand the character traits a taker portrays. Once understood, the individual can then learn to consciously avoid emulating these traits. Making a habit of always dictating the social life of those around is one way of portraying the taker attitude. Learning to be more flexible and easygoing would be a start in the right direction. Always taking but never lending out one's possessions is another sure sign of a taker. There are many people who would willingly use others for their own benefit. Being unable to relate or listen to other people's problems is also a common taker's trait. These individuals finds it hard to share with others and also to help others with the problems. Chapter 7. Be genuine. Synopsis. Most people can fake being genuine some of the time, but eventually others around are able to read through the fake persona and see the real person behind the mask. Being genuine is something that everyone should strive to achieve in their daily life. Be real. In trying to exercise being genuine, there are certain areas that can be addressed, some of which are as follows. Finding out about one's self and how that persona relates to being genuine. Some people tend to be swayed by the current trends and persuasive lifestyles rather than being able to stand out and be different. In being able to discern which category applies to the individual, some headway is made towards molding a more genuine individual. Spending time to explore and indulge one's self is also an effective way to find out what really is the makeup of the individual's character. This realization is important because most people tend to put on a false front just so they can adapt to the current circumstances. In learning to stick to one's own values and lifestyles no matter what the others around are doing, clearly shows the determination to stand out and be noticed, thus consciously avoiding the false facade in favor of the genuine thing. Abandoning the necessity of keeping up with the latest trends also allows the individual to be able to stay in one phase long enough to develop an identity that is worth exploring and getting to know better. Trying new things is always a good idea, but keeping at it even though it creates such unpleasantness and discomfort is definitely not being genuine to one's self. Always being mindful of the spoken word is one way of staying genuine. Saying and meaning what is said is always welcomed if done in a pleasant and diplomatic manner. Chapter 8. Don't dominate a conversation. Synopsis. Sometimes an individual can be more knowledgeable than the others in a situation, thus the ability to converse well on the topic at hand may be perceived as dominating the conversation. Unfortunately, because the experience and knowledge on the subject is vast, the said individual will in fact be the most contributor to the conversation at hand, without even realizing what he or she is doing. The errors in trying to inhibit the commonly perceived undesirable trait, most people tend to become too extreme instead. However, striking a reasonable balance should be the aim, in order to be a better contributor to an overall conversation. The most common problem is trying to curb the tendency to want to immediately vocalize an idea or thought that pops into one's mind. In giving into this tendency, the individual is able to immediately get the thoughts out before any distractions happen to cause the thought to be forgotten. The alternative would be to train the mind to remember the initial thought while concentrating on the conversation at hand. After several attempts to exercise this memory feature, the individual would have some percentage of success and eventually be able to hold back and then contribute without any problems. Alternatively, jotting down the idea or thought and waiting for a chance to share these within the conversation only when others have had a chance to contribute is a good practice to start. Making a judgment call to either contribute to the topic being discussed or to just listen would largely depend on the level of interest shown within the group on the said topic. If the topic is very technical and heavy, it would require a certain level of in-depth knowledge and interest. Otherwise, jumping in and trying to dominate the conversation will only end up being perceived as dominating or boring. Chapter 9. Be a good friend following meeting someone. Synopsis. Some lasting and good friendships start after meeting a first and chance meeting. In order for this friendship to develop into a fruitful and long-term endeavor, either party needs to take a further initiative. Some suggestions. Continuing the friendship after the first initial meeting is normally done only when both parties acknowledge there is a common ground, in which both can be a contributing and complementing factor. There are several possible ways to initiate the continuity of the newfound friendship. If the newfound friendship is based on a common theme of perhaps sports, music, eating, traveling, or any other possibilities, then it becomes much easier to make the next step. Inviting the newfound friend to any one of the above forays is the first step to ensuring the contact is continued, and from there the friendship can grow and blossom. Keeping in touch using the various media and telecommunication avenues available in present times is also another way to keep the connection between the new friends. Calling the person or texting is the most popular way to choose as the new friend is within a certain distance. However, if distance and technology is an issue, then other alternatives can also be sought. The important thing is to ensure is that there is further ongoing contact established. Inviting the new friend to social functions and other casual gathering is also another way to initiate further contact towards building a friendship. This is a non-threatening way of trying to include the new friend into an already established group. Ensuring the new person is comfortable and happy in the new group is also very important, as it shows the concern and character to the invitee. A simple phone call to inquire about the new friend can be very heartwarming and certainly show the possibility of furthering the friendship. This act assures the new friend of the interest in forming a good and comfortable friendship based on the follow-up contact initiated. Chapter 10. A lonely life is a sad life. Synopsis. Human were not created with the intention of living life alone. Even the creator of everything realized that humans need companionships in order to be balanced and happy. Therefore, living alone or opting to lead a life with little or no contact with other is indeed sad and may even lead to mental and physical problems. Down to it, sometimes it requires a focus and mental effort to form relationships with other people. For some, this can be a rather difficult and embarrassing experience, as they are really not comfortable or not confident enough in their own selves. Furthermore, it can be quite difficult and challenging to actually set aside time from an overwhelmingly stressful work life to then have to deal with the stress of forming new relationships. Herein lies the initial problem, as most of these people often look upon the exercise of forming new relationships as stressful. It would be wise to address this particular train of thought, as it does play a very important and sometimes destructive role blocking the quest to start new friendships. Once the confidence levels are present, then the initial apprehension faced by the person will lessen to a certain degree, which allows for the more adventurous mindset to prevail. The confidence gained is then apparent in the individual, and this then becomes a very attractive quality, which in turn attracts others to the said individual. Wrapping up. Human were not created with the intention of living life alone. Even the creator of everything realized that humans need companionships in order to be balanced and happy. Therefore, living alone or opting to lead a life with little or no contact with other is indeed sad and may even lead to mental and physical problems. Don't leave before you press like button below and subscribe to this channel. As a subscriber, you will receive a new notifications every time a new video is uploaded. Good luck.